Head coach Rick Santos joins us, getting ready for the game at Holy Cross. But naturally, coach, can we start with the first round playoff victory against Fordham?
Yeah, obviously, you guys were there. You saw, how good of an atmosphere it was. Just happy with the support that we got from everybody, even though it was Thanksgiving break. So really appreciate all our loyal fan base, everybody in the Durham community that showed up and showed out for us. That was tremendous, and it was a slugfest. It was back and forth. It was one of those games where you felt like whoever kind of had the ball last had an opportunity to win it. Our defense gave up some yards and some points, as I've mentioned before, but I think they made some huge critical stops in that game when they needed to. They wreaked havoc on the opposing team quarterback, even though we didn't get a sack. We hit them numerous times, and then obviously creating those turnovers was huge for us. I think it was a really good game plan by Coach Garrett Gillick and the defensive staff where we went odd a few times, and they chunked some yards on the ground, but that was kind of by design to see if we could eat up some clock. We were able to do that. I think those 2 drives that we went in an odd front, was able to take off about 6 or 7 minutes worth of game time. So that was big for us. We stuck to the game plan. I think the guys that had some resiliency on the defensive side of the ball. You knew how explosive Fordham's offense was going to be, and that we were inevitably going to give up some plays, but they did a good job kind of hunkering down in the red zone. And then on the other side of the ball, I was really proud with the offensive effort. We went into it expecting we were going to have to score, at least match our season total, and we did that and exceeded that. I think we were efficient on the ground and through the air. It was this balance of attack we've had all year. Offensive line did a great job establishing a ground game while also protecting Max. Max was did a good job throwing the ball in terms of throwing people open, making some contested throws. Fordham attacked us. They blitzed us, played a lot of man-to-man, got guys up in your face. They put 8 or 9 guys in the box all day to try to stop Dylan and forced us to take some shots over the top. We were able to hit those. Need to get our completion percentage up a little bit higher than it was, but ultimately he was effective and did a great job taking care of it. 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. And then Dylan Lobby, finding creative ways to get him the ball in the run game, out in space in the pass game, and then what he did in the return game as well. Obviously was a huge reason why we were able to come away with the win in that game.
How many points you need this week?
1 more than them. I don't know. I think there is balance of football team we've faced all year. They're extremely well coached. Bob Chesney is as good of a coach at any level there is in the country. I think his entire staff, I have the utmost respect for them. They do a great job offensively, defensively, and in particular on special teams as well. They blocked 5 punts, maybe tipped a couple other. They might have close to 7. They're really good on their coverage unit teams. They play their starters on special teams, so you know that they make a concerted effort to put those guys out there because it's extremely important to them from the top down. So that shows really good leadership on their part. And offensively, I think their quarterback is dynamic in Saluka. He can run it, he can throw it. He's got a big-time arm, and he's got some really elite skill on the perimeter that he can beat you with. But I think they want to, knowing them, I think they want to establish a ground game. They want to be physical. Their offensive line coach has an edge about him. He wants those guys to play downhill on you. So I think for us on the defensive side of the ball, we got to stop the run first. We got to work hard to get them in obvious passing situations. And then hopefully, our defensive line can find a way to get to the quarterback when we know they're going to throw it, because I think they are so balanced offensively. And then on the other side of it, we know the defensive coordinator, Scott James, extremely well. Obviously, personally, I've worked with him for 3 or 4 years. He's been here for 5 or 6. Tremendous coach, great motivator. Those guys play so hard. They tackle well. He does a really good job mixing up coverages, and I think I was giving Coach DeAndre a hard time this week. I think he did such a good job developing their defensive back group the last couple of years. Those guys they disguise, they're physical, they can make plays. I think it's probably as good of a defensive back unit collectively as we've seen all year. So we got to do a great job with them and making sure that Max is dialed into what we're doing, and receivers understand how their routes are going to adjust to the different coverage combinations that we're going to see. So yeah, for us, we have to play our cleanest game of the year. We have to take care of the football. We have to create some turnovers like we did last week. We need to win on special teams. That's going to be a huge added emphasis this week. I know Coach McLaughlin is excited about this. The game plan we put together so far, and we are as well. And for us, it's an opportunity to go and show that we can be one of the best teams in New England. And I think they have been. Right now they are the best team in New England the last 4 years. They've proven that. They've beat some elite teams in our conference. They've beat some teams in the Ivy League the last couple of years. They've obviously handled themselves extremely well in the Patriot League. So, this is as tough of a challenge as we've had all year. But for us, it's an opportunity to be great one more time.
So speaking of the turnovers, I think they've only turned the ball over 4 times. They haven't lost any fumbles. They've only fumbled twice and haven't lost any of them.
Yeah.
When a team doesn't put the ball on the ground, how do you go about, forcing them into situations where they might turn the ball over?
I mean, it's always been an emphasis on our part, and I think we've done that for years, done such a great job. Coach Matt, Coach Lyons were here, and now obviously Coach Garrett Gillick feeling the same way, put in emphasis in practice. We practice turnover circuits multiple times a week, so it's continuing to harp on the fundamental stuff that's made us great in the past, and don't change anything. You just got to continue. First, second guy in has to tackle the ball, wrap up, and then everyone else, when we gang tackle, has to go after it and punch at it, rip at it, and hopefully we get a couple out. But yeah, I think it shows how well coached they are. And I think when you take care of the football, it's something that's, it's obviously they got really talented football players, but it's something where it's evident that the coaching staff is harping on that on a daily basis, and it shows up where, they're an elite team and holding on to it.
So at times this season, you guys defensively, it's been a little bit up and down against running quarterbacks, where you got some not new faces, but some guys getting more playing time in the secondary due to injuries. How does that affect how you defensively game plan for a quarterback like Sluka?
Next man up. I mean, at the end of the day, whoever we're going to roll out there on Saturday, we have the utmost confidence in those guys that are playing. They have the ability to make plays, obviously, or they wouldn't be at this level and they wouldn't be here. So we have all the faith in the world of every single person on all 3 phases of our team. And for us, it's just doing a great job having eye discipline. I think what happens when you're facing a running quarterback sometimes, if they're doing some misdirections and those sort of things, if you get in the wrong gap, if you're a step behind because you're not reading your keys, then you're not able to thud that person up or get in front of the quarterback. When you start taking angles, he's explosive. He's got a really good first step. So I think first and foremost, it starts with our preparation all week, but then we have to be super disciplined on game day, reading our keys, and that way we can get guys in front of him, force him to work, laterally and not just kind of attack us downhill. Because I think if we're taking some glancing blows, he's explosive. He can run through some arm tackles. We're gonna have to get multiple guys on him all day.
Kind of almost the second half of the season, and as you guys have scored more points, can you describe a little bit about what Brian Scott brings? I mean, I know he has the background, but as far as offensive play calling, what makes a good offensive play calling?
Yeah.
What makes him good at it?
I think the best thing is for him, he has perspective on how to call stuff in the flow of the game. And what I mean by that, and he'll talk about it too, we've had these conversations in the past. Early in his career, they were spread, they were aerated, they were wide open, they would throw it 50, 60 times a game. They didn't care about time of possession. They didn't care about 3 and outs. They didn't care about, hanging their defense out to dry. It was just let me go try to score 40 or 50 will be the reason that we win. And now I think he's going to call a game based on the flow of it. So we'll have a certain game plan going into it, which changes every single week. But I think his in-game adjustment is so elite, how he sees the game in real time, how we're able to have conversations in real time during the game on, hey, we should probably slow it down a little bit here. Like, let's take a little bit extra time on breaking the huddle so we can take some air out of the ball. Or, hey, these guys are scoring anyways. Let's get some tempo on these next couple drives and let us dictate the terms of engagement. Let us push the pace of the game. So I think for him, he's done it at a high level in multiple different offenses for the last couple of decades. So I think it's his calmness on game day and his ability to make adjustments in real time, I think is very special.
Does he do it from the field?
Calls it from the field, yeah.
Is that unusual?
A lot of times the coordinators will be up in the booth so they can kind of see the vantage point and go from there. But, I think you got to give credit to Ed Borden as well. He's our kind of eye in the sky up there, and he's the one that echoes down, what he sees from a coverage standpoint. He really tries to everything. Sees coverages, second-level guys, blitzes, and then any twist or stunt or movement up front. So, Ed does a tremendous job giving us information in real time as well, and then kind of all of us, come together collectively, try to figure out what we're going to do to continue to attack the opposing defenses.
Rick, back to the turnover situation.
Yeah.
Obviously they're very good.
Yeah.
Can you just speak to their quarterback? What do you see in him? Is he just, he carries it too, so he's not fumbling, but he must be making
He's
good,
strong. I mean,
good decisions with the ball when he's throwing it too, right, to avoid trouble.
yeah, I mean, you look, they list him at 6'3", 215. I mean, he's a rocked up dude. He's a great athlete. So I think, yeah, it's designed QB runs, and then they have a lot of, your typical spread zone read stuff where he's going to read the C gap or read the defensive end or end man on the line of scrimmage. I think he does a really good job making decisions in terms of when to give it, when to pull it. And then, yeah, I mean, he runs downhill. He works to be the aggressor. He works to kind of bring the fight to the defense. If you weren't going against him, you admire his play. I really like the way the young man carries himself out there. He's got a ton of confidence. Obviously, Coach Andre being there, as I mentioned, he said he's an elite worker. Everyone loves him in that organization. So I think he's everything you want in a quarterback. And, they design most of the run game around him for him to be the focal point. But I think it's because of his stature. He's a pretty rocked up dude that he has the ability to take some punishment and not put the ball on the turf.
And in his passing game, with 3 picks, is he just smart back there and not get rid of it, or what do you see?
Yeah, so I think they do a really good job from a play calling standpoint. They take a lot of deep shots to the perimeter because they have some guys that can run. So they take a lot of one-on-one stuff where it limits the amount of guys in the middle of the field that could potentially tip it or get a hand on it. So by design, they do a good job. But then I think he's a really good decision maker, and a lot of it is too like he'll scramble around and improvise as well. So he'll drop back. And then he'll just kind of take off and make some plays if he sees it. So I think they do a great job protecting him with the scheme, and I think he's a very smart football player, cerebral guy that takes care of it as well. So I mean, again, they're got a ton of talent. They're extremely well coached, and that's why they're undefeated and right now the best team in New England. It's because they're the complete package.
Go back to your defense for a second. I thought just from the way I saw the game, that Caleb Beat really stepped up. Did he earn himself like more playing time rest of the season, next season, based on last week?
Absolutely. He's a little bulldog out there. He's relentless. He's gritty. He's tough. Throws it. Might not be the biggest guy in terms of stature, but I mean he's got the heart of a lion. I love the young man. I think he gives everything he has, every ounce of energy, every single snap. He exhausts himself out there, and to go against. We've faced some. That's a good thing. I think we're battle tested in this conference. We've faced some dynamic guys on the perimeter. So he's seen some playmakers going into last week, but those guys were as good as anybody we faced. And I think the combination, they had 3 or 4 guys that were all conference, all-American caliber players. So for him to go toe-to-toe with multiple 1,000-yard receivers and how productive that unit was, it shows kind of how he's progressing throughout the season, how he's taking the coaching, and ultimately what type of competitor he is.
Coach, we're going to talk to Eichman and O'Neill. Can you give us kind of a quick coach's thought on both of those guys?
And Matty O'Neill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Matty is somebody who I think continually get better as his career's gone along, and he's progressed every single week and got better. The last month, I think obviously our rushing totals have gone up, and that's a huge reason because of our offensive line and Matty in particular. We run a lot of power, a lot of gap scheme where your guards have to pull, they have to get in space. They're the guy, the focal point at the point of attack in those in particular run plays, and Matt's a guy that we design a lot of those runs to be run behind because he's athletic for a big guy. He's a big dancing bear out there, but he's physical at the point of attack. He's got great hands. And for him, we challenged him in the offseason too. We thought he had the mental makeup for it, but we wanted him to kind of change his body composition a little bit and work on getting a little more muscle bound, and he did that. I mean, he just really dedicated himself to the weight room and getting in shape, and it's shown this year, and he's one of our best overall players, not just best lineman. And then Joey Eichman is just, he's one of those guys. He's a New Hampshire man through and through, and came in here, partial scholarship, worked his way up to a full scholarship guy, has earned every single thing he had. He's an elite worker. He's one of the best athletes on the team. And I think he makes plays because he flies around and plays 100 miles an hour every single snap. I think he's a very cerebral football player, but for me, the biggest thing that stands out is his toughness. And his teammates revere and love him because he works every single day in practice. He loves football. He loves the process of getting better. He's just a gritty, tough guy. And he's somebody that I think has truly earned the trust and respect of his teammates because he works so hard.
He seems to be around the ball a lot.
He's got a knack for that. Yeah, he's got three picks, I think it is, and was around it a couple times, last week. Yeah, just one of those guys that kind of has a knack for making big plays, and hopefully he can have a timely one this week.
All right, next up, we have offensive lineman Matt O'Neill. And Matt, before we have questions about the Holy Cross game, we reflect back on what the Fordham game was like from a player perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it was a challenge. Obviously, we knew going into the game it was going to be a huge challenge. Their offense is primarily unstoppable. Our defense put up a good game. We had two big turnovers, kind of gave us the offense big momentum. Came out with the win, a hard-fought win, and hopefully we carry that momentum into next week.
All right, questions for Matt?
How have you approached the season? As we've gone, these games are all big every week.
Yeah, totally. As the season goes on, like you said, the games get bigger and bigger, and you're playing for more and more. The first round of playoffs, everyone's blessed to be there. Football in December now, it's like this is what everyone dreams of. As a kid playing college football, let alone the playoffs, it's gonna get harder and harder, especially on the road. But this is what everyone dreams of, and big games like this is why you come to UNH to play football. And I think everyone has the confidence for coming in this week, and we're gonna just translate it over to Saturday.
Coach Santos just talked a little bit about how much you put in the offseason in order to be a better lineman this year. Weight room was your friend, enemy, whatever, but how did you approach last offseason getting ready for this year?
Yeah, winning 8 games in a row, losing 8 games in a row is not necessarily the most ideal season, especially when it's in the last part of your season. So you got to do something to improve. So you got to attack the off season head on. You only play 11 games guaranteed a season. So most of the time you spent at school, playing for Division I football is spent training. So obviously we needed to improve to get better for this season. So I think that goes along with the rest of the guys on the team too. We all, fully dedicated to the weight room. Trappy does a good job getting us fit. So yeah, here we are.
How this week, what do you know about them? I'm sure you've heard playing and some about Holy Cross.
Yeah, as you guys know, we played them in 2019. They got one from us. They're kings of their conference. They're 11-0. They haven't been beaten. They're good in all 3 phases, but I think we're good in all 3 phases too. I think it's gonna be a good game. Obviously on the road, big stadium. I think our fans show out though. New England football is gonna be good. It is good at this time of the year, so I think it'll be a good game. They're a solid coach. Their special teams are very good. So it's going to be a battle. So whoever walks out, king of New England.
Seems like the offense has gotten better and better the last 4 or 5 weeks in a row. Throughout the whole season, but especially the last 4 or 5 weeks. What have you seen that's made the offense better? Is it something in particular, or just?
Our coaches do, especially Coach Scott, does a really good job scheming up our offense, week in, week out. Obviously, having an all-conference running back helps us out. When you're doing something wrong, and all of a sudden it gets corrected when you see Dylan running around the whole line of scrimmage and scoring a touchdown. But other than that, our coaches do a good job scheming. They get us well prepared throughout the week, and ultimately preparation leads to success. So I think a big majority of it is getting coached well by them throughout the week and translating that over to the game on Saturday.
There's certain calls in the huddle that you get pretty excited about. Like for instance, you came out for the second half. Play number 1, we hit the big one to Huron. Did you kind of know coming out for that play, it had the potential to be, something that really could turn the game?
Honestly, we're expected outside zone. I think to the left. They tag a little motion on it at the end, but as soon as I kind of hear the number, I'm just like, all right, I know what we have to do. So we're selling outside zone on the left, but I didn't realize there was a jet going on in the backfield, and I just turned. I'm like, why is everyone running that way? And then there goes Sharon, like Usain Bolt over there running down the field. And I'm like, I'm running after him, let's do this thing. So no, I didn't know, honestly, but I'll take it for what it is.
When you get a game like last week where the offense kind of needs to score every drive, is that do you guys look at that as a good time as an offense, or is it a little more butterflies in the stomach? Or
I mean, it was a good time when it was working, you know. I mean, obviously we knew coming into the game that it was going to be a high-scoring game. Like I said, the defense had a couple stops, and that's kind of what would change the momentum around. And luckily, we were up at up throughout the whole game. We were winning throughout the whole game, so that's also a bonus too. When you get off the field after a touchdown, 2 plays later they score a touchdown, but you're still up. It's kind of let's do this again. It's kind of it keeps your confidence high. So yeah, I mean it's fun scoring that much. Luckily, we have some good receivers, all around, all good offense. Max to throw the ball, Dylan to get some yards, and yeah, it was fun.
On the same vein, to score the last few weeks, 35, 40, and even more points and stuff, which hasn't been done a lot lately. How much satisfaction is there in that, in feeling that you're gonna do that or roll pretty good?
Yeah, it's good to know that the gears are finally moving in the right direction. I think now at this point, like I said, playing the playoffs, not like only this week is guaranteed, so we got to keep those gears rolling. Translate these past couple weeks into the next game, because ultimately this is the biggest one out of them all. So yeah, it's definitely good to know that we finally figured it out, especially at the right part of the season. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it stays that way on Saturday and we come out with the win.
We're pleased to be joined by Joe Eichmann, representing the defensive side of the ball. Joe, before we look ahead to Holy Cross, can you look back on the win against Fordham, just give your impressions of that game?
Yeah, I thought it was a huge win for us as a program. Coming into that week, we knew we had a lot to handle, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Their offense, they're really high scoring. We knew offensively we were going to put up a lot of points, and that was going to help us a lot throughout the game. So I think just seeing us execute, in all phases of the game it was a huge win for us as a program, and it's helped our confidence get higher moving forward.
Questions?
I like the way Coach Santos praised you for playing 100 miles per hour every snap. So you still have gas in the tank, right? We got a big one this week.
Yeah. Coach,
How are you approaching Holy Cross?
Holy Cross is the same approach. We go through the same stuff week in, week out. We practice hard. We practice at a frenetic pace. Santos likes to call us, the cardiac cats in the fourth quarter. That's really just a testament to how we practice. We don't cardio much during the practice because we're just running the whole time. But in terms of preparation, it's just laying stone by stone, same preparation.
Joe, it seems like games like this, turnovers, it's an obvious factor. Usually if one team turns it over, the other doesn't. But they're pretty good in that area. But you seem to have a knack for the ball too. Is that just product of playing hard and you're in the right spot at the right time, or any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I think turnovers in general, they're just a blessing. When you read your keys and you're in the right spot, good things will happen. Our coaches always say, make sure you run to the ball, because when you run to the ball, good things happen. Whether it's a tip, an overthrow, whatever it may be. And I think just straight into the ball is how turnovers do happen.
What does he look at Holy Cross's offense with the dual threat quarterback, good guys, good backs and receivers? What's the challenge for you guys?
Their challenge as a whole, their quarterback's really good. He's dual threat. We struggled with that earlier in the year. He's a good runner. He can throw. When you watch the film, the first person rarely tackles him. He always makes them miss. They got good backs. They got good receivers. They're a good team as a whole, and they're really well coached. Which going to the playoffs is also a big factor too. Is if all their guys are on the same page, it'll create a bigger challenge for us.
As far as struggling early in the season with that type of quarterback, do you have things settled down, you think, as far as how to do it now?
Yeah, I think in the beginning of the season it was, just some performance anxiety, some misfits as a defense as a whole. I was injured at the time, so I wasn't out there. But watching it, I think we struggled. But I think throughout our weeks as a defense, we've matured a lot. not just with stopping the quarterback, but keeping him in the pocket, stopping the run game. So our approach hasn't changed. I think we're just a lot more mature as a defense entirely. So I think we'll be good in that area.
So last week you had a lot of guys kind of stepping up. Like Gavin Erda played snaps on defense. You even had Charles Briscoe out there at times.
Yeah.
But as part of that secondary, with guys that haven't played a lot coming in, guys that haven't played at all, like Chuck coming in, what did you have to do as one of the guys with experience to get guys set?
Yeah, that was interesting. Midweek we had Charles come over, and we know Charles he's very athletic, he's fast, so we knew it never would be a problem with him. But in terms of the older guys, we just had to be there to help them with calls, whether it be them looking at us if they don't know what coverage to be in, which that was really never an issue. Casey got them coached up pretty well, and even when we were all out there on Saturday, I was never worried what guy was in, whether he was going to make a mistake or not. We were all pretty locked in.
What about the overall part of the impact of the game? Obviously, we're talking about the undefeated tops in the league right now. Playoff game, less, one and done type thing.
Yeah. Going into the playoffs, we know it's one and done. Win or go home. Everything matters at this point, and right now they do have the keys to be the Kings of New England, and that's how we're looking at this game. We're on a mission to get back on top, and they're the next team in our way, and they are 11, 12, and 0, whatever they are.